Okay, guys, I am here today for another one. Today, I want to focus on earthquakes. When I was in college studying science, right, I had many questions. And, anyone who studies science will tell you that during your studies, there are some things that you don't really agree with, but you are told to just deal with it, to agree with it, and when you're ready to do your PhD, that's the point at which you can actually challenge it when you come up with your own thesis. So you make your predictions and you prove it and whatnot. That's when it really counts. Or during what level you have to develop a theory and prove it, and then once it's accepted by the scientific community, then you've really made your impact. Now, earthquakes is one of those things that really puzzled me as a young science student. It didn't quite make much sense to me. But I grew up in rural Jamaica and we didn't have access to certain information. So now I'm older, there is so much information available out there, guys, where the only way that you can get deceived in this time and in this period is if you really want to be deceived. That's the only way to put it. You can only be deceived if you want to be deceived. The Creator has created us with a brain whereby we can investigate, we can look into stuff. And if we don't feel comfortable about it, to dig even deeper. So I've been digging into earthquakes recently. When I was in elementary school in Jamaica, one of the things that we would do we would do we call it earthquake drills, where we would go on the door jams, on the tables, run outside in the open, and so forth. So I want to explore earthquakes today. And here in this article, it's saying that earthquakes are invariably preceded. Preceded means something happening before it. Preceded by a period when stress increases deep in the earth. And they're saying here that animals appear to be able to sense seismic events during buildup of stress. Electronic charge carriers are activated deep below. So you hear that? Something is activated deep below. And they're called positive holes. Positive holes have unusual properties. They can travel fast and far into and through the surrounding rocks. As they flow, they generate ultra low frequency electromagnetic waves. When they arrive at the Earth's surface, they can ionize the air. When they flow into water, they can oxidize it to hydrogen peroxides. All these physical and chemical processes can have noticeable effects on animals. Guys, this is all lies. This is all lies right here. This absolutely makes no sense. Right, so if we continue further, it's saying that earthquakes can be caused by the build-up of tectonic stresses. So if you have, if you have done a bit of geography, you will understand that they teach us that the Earth is built up of plates and that those plates move. This never really made much sense. But one of the ways that they got us to believe in this is by showing us a cross section of the Earth and showing us that basically all of these different layers are basically floating perfectly on each other. So as a young student, you're like, you know what? Okay, that makes sense. You believe that. But now you're older, you're realizing that this absolutely makes no sense. For one, I am not of the school of thought that we live on a spinning ball. Okay? When rocks reach a critical limit, catastrophic failure occurs, causing a rupture to propagate, sometimes over distances of hundreds of kilometers, with typical speeds in a range of 2.2 to 3 kilometers per second. Supersonic with respect to the speed of sound in the air. Because if I remember correctly, I think sound moves at around 340, I think meters per second, I think it is. So rupture generates shock waves in the earth that spread at speeds of up to 6 kilometers per second, right? For the compressional P waves and about 3.3 kilometers for more destructive shear waves. So basically they're saying here that they're trying to make the case that how earthquakes form and that when those movements occur, it generates electromagnetic waves. Okay, so I'm going to leave that right now. I'm going to show you what they kind of teach us in classroom. Okay? Now let's take a look at this video right here.
We were going along the flat coastal road facing the...
So this is the earthquake that took place in 2004 in Indonesia, where they said that all of those hundreds of thousands of people died. Okay, so let's watch here. I may stop here and there to talk about what's going on.
The ocean. But the elephant simply refused to carry on in that direction. It wanted to get off that road. That was the elephant's strong feeling.
Meanwhile, back at the camp, 2 more elephants were waiting for their first tour.
The other 2 elephants were tethered to the pole nearby. The elephant which the tourists were riding had been gone for about 3 minutes. Then suddenly these 2 elephants which were shackled kicked and broke their chains and ran away up the hill.
So guys, what I'm thinking is happening here is that they have a technology, they have hidden technology that uses electromagnetic waves, ultra low frequency electromagnetic waves that they can target as weapons that they're using to attack mankind in the form of earthquakes. So keep watching. So with the energy that's given off by those electromagnetic waves, we as human beings are not able to really detect it, or most of us aren't. I think some people may detect them in the form of headaches, or you may have flu-like symptoms or whatnot. But animals may be able to hear those sounds, and it may sound really loud and terrifying to them. And I think that is the main reason why the animals want to move away from those areas, because they may sense that danger of that loud sound. Because we don't know what it sounds like, but probably to the animals, it sounds terrifying and it may be really loud.
I didn't know what was wrong at the time, so I just kept on going. We reached a tree and a bend in the road. At that point, the sea was behind us, and the elephant was very nervous, swaying its head from side to side.
So the animals, became almost disoriented, right? Swaying, swinging its head from side to side.
Looking left and right. When the elephant came up here, it just ran amok.
The Khao shoreline was completely destroyed by the tidal wave. More than 700 people were killed here alone. But thanks to the elephants, the tourists who happened to be riding on their backs were safe on high ground, up a hill some 1,000 meters away from the beach and the mayhem. To this day, no one fully understands what the elephants were reacting to.
The elephants were reacting to the electromagnetic waves, the ultra low frequency electromagnetic waves that we as human beings cannot naturally detect.
But what we do know is that elephants have a keen sense of hearing, and that the soles of their feet are highly sensitive, capable of detecting faraway vibrations.
Elephants can feel vibrations. They can also hear sounds coming from those vibrations. I think it could feel the sensations from the approaching tidal wave.
It is not the tidal waves that the animals are hearing or feeling. They are hearing the frequency, the sound, and most likely the vibrations from those sounds very far away. Okay, we can hear that frequency, but animals can.
มันสั่นมาถึง
The tsunami claimed almost 300,000 human lives. Yet in all the parts of Thailand, Sri Lanka, and other areas destroyed by the tsunami, not a single animal that was free to move lost its life.
Because the animals, again, can detect those frequencies. Okay, so I'm gonna jump forward here to this point in the video, or is it 24? Okay, let's jump forward here real quick. It's a long video, it's over an hour long, or maybe close to an hour long. I kind of watched some parts of it and I thought it was really interesting to get my point across that the weapon that they're using for earthquakes, or they use weapons, electromagnetic waves, targeted electromagnetic waves to generate earthquakes. It's taking a long time to load. There's one guy in here too that I wanted you guys to see. We're gonna come back to him. This guy right here. This guy right here is laughing at the people right here.
Thousands of people die in Pakistan.
Okay.
And yet another.
Let's watch this segment of this video here that I kind of glossed over at the beginning. No, not the beginning, but I glossed over it at one point. Let's watch it because there's this guy here I want you guys to see.
There's massive destruction in the capital Islamabad and outlying areas. Later, there came reports that just before the quake, birds there had been crying loudly. Dogs had been seen running through the city, barking frantically. Wild pigs, which usually roam the city at night, at this time of the year, had totally disappeared the night before. For centuries, there have been reports that animals behave in conspicuously strange ways before a quake. Days, sometimes even weeks before the event, the animals seemed disturbed. On the 6th of May 1976, an earthquake destroyed villages in the northern Italian province of Friaul. One of them was the birthplace of Helmut Tribuch, who grew up there as a member of the German-speaking minority. When he heard of the destruction of his home village, he hurried back to help. Residents described to him how animals had been behaving strangely just before the quake. They wondered if he could explain this to them, since he was a physicist.
So you see, guys, really and truly, a physicist or a scientist shouldn't have to explain to us what is happening around us that we can see. This is something that should be passed on from generation to generation. But there is knowledge that's been hidden from us. And our ancestors have been brainwashed to give up whatever knowledge that they had. And that's the reason why now they have us in their school system where they can indoctrinate us into thinking a particular way and give up our eyes, what our eyes tell us, what our ears tell us, and instead believe what the books say. Okay, watch this guy right here, guys. Watch this guy right here. Okay? If you notice, he's doing the Illuminati pyramid right here. He's doing the Illuminati pyramid right here. This means right here, whenever you see they do this in the media, this is when they're telling lies. This is when they're telling lies right here. This is how you know. When they're about to tell a lie, they do this sign right here. And this also. So pay attention to him.
I was then confronted with and held the opinion that it was a psychological rather than a physiological phenomenon. That it was only in retrospect that people believed something had been happening with the animals. I set out to find what was behind it by interviewing as many residents as possible and collating many reports. I wanted to know whether it was just a psychological phenomenon or whether it had scientific relevance.
Tribuch shares his interests with geophysicist Kellen Wang. Born in China, Wang now lives in Canada and is the first Western-trained scientist to be given access to the official records of the most astonishing earthquake in history.
So guys, you see all these different nations, they work together.
Although skeptical at first, the evidence he found there has prompted a reversal in his opinion.
Well, the earthquake occurred in a place like this. That's in the Liaoning province. And
so you see how they have the globe right here? This is what we supposedly live on, guys. This thing right here never made sense to me in school. Never made sense, especially when we had to do calculations in physics class to calculate acceleration due to gravity and weight and mass and all those different calculations. It never made sense. It always seemed as though we were playing with the base 10 system. We would multiply it by 10 to make it weight, divided by 10 to make it mass. It's almost like we were playing with the base 10 system when we were doing this stuff. Now I'm older, I'm realizing what they're doing with this globe Earth theory, wherein it's so miraculous to people and so astonishing that they can use this globe to explain any phenomenon. They can use it to explain any phenomenon that occurs.
Near the town of Haicheng.
The 1975 Haicheng earthquake is the only quake ever successfully predicted.
You hear that? It's the only quake ever successfully predicted because they're the ones who create the earthquakes, guys. These governments are trying to make not trying. They are making our lives miserable. They're working for the devil. Okay? Listen carefully. Let me rewind it a little bit.
Near the town of Haicheng.
The 1975 Haicheng earthquake is the only quake ever successfully predicted. In China, from ancient times, it was common knowledge that animals behaved in unusual ways before a quake. The population was taught how to watch for telltale signs in animal behavior.
It was clever. These fans were handed out to the people. On the fans are pictures which show what...
They said this guy here is German. I don't know. He looks Asiatic to me.
One should look out for. For example, if horses suddenly shy away for no apparent reason, if fish jump out of the water, if chickens fly onto trees, or if snakes unexpectedly come out of the ground.
That makes no sense, guys. I grew up in the countryside, and it's pretty common for chickens to go up in trees. But what they're saying here is absolutely correct. If animals are behaving this way, they're hearing something. God made these creatures, guys, these fish and all these different animals to live where they live. He designed the fish to live in the water. He designed the bird to fly. He designed the hippo to, waller in mud, whatever the case may be. All these animals are intelligently designed. So if these animals are suddenly jumping out of the ocean, running from the sky, flying unusually, it is because of some disturbance created by man.
Oder wenn Schlangen aus dem Boden kommen, wo man es nicht vermuten würde.
Was that, a serpent? Guys, if you notice, they keep showing the serpent. Because they keep showing the serpent, guys, because I believe that these people worship the snake. And the serpent is a euphemism for how they operate. They operate like the serpent. So, for example, in the Bible where he speaks about the serpent, I don't think it's a literal snake. I think it's how the devil people operate. They operate like the snake. They act like everything is okay because they're hiding. They're trying to be nice. And the moment you think everything is okay, they go for the jugular. They go for the kill. Okay? All right, I'm going to stop this right here. And I'm going to move forward to this point here, 24-minute mark. Let's see here.
Japan, because of the frequency of earthquakes, even young children are familiar with the phenomenon.
Georgia's 186 hospitals serve 10.6 million Georgians and
In recent years, just before a quake, there have been an increasing number of reports of interrupted television transmissions or of mobile phones ringing without anyone calling them.
Guys, did you hear that?
Motoji Ikea was a physics professor at Osaka University of interrupted television transmissions or of mobile phones ringing without anyone calling them.
You hear that?
Before retiring,
So here they're basically saying that there are tons of interferences before earthquakes. Guys, I believe that this Japan is behind many of the earthquakes. I believe that they have the technology fine-tuned over there, where Japan, they are the ones who have a lot of knowledge as far as how to generate earthquakes are concerned, because how the global elites run this world, they run this world like one body, like one system. So the head, maybe the United States doing something. The left arm, maybe, I don't know, China doing something. The right arm, maybe Belgium doing something. The left foot, maybe this country doing something. All of these countries work together as one body. So pay attention to what they're saying here. They're saying that they have discovered that during earthquakes or before earthquakes, they have interference in various transmissions. That is because these earthquakes are being created by harnessing electromagnetic energy and targeting them at a specific point on the Earth's surface or below the Earth's surface at specific rock formations or something where different countries or different locations sit on, and they can target those spots. And they tell us where they are going to target, because anywhere they say fall along that thing that we call the ring of fire, basically along the ocean fronts and various countries, those are the areas where they say the different plate formations occur that makes them susceptible to earthquakes. So take these people seriously when they say that earthquakes are going to occur because of whatever they say happens at whatever point in the past. Take them seriously because they have targeted spots.
In recent years, just before a quake, there have been an increasing number of reports of interrupted television transmissions or of mobile phones ringing without anyone calling them.
Wow.
Before retiring, Motoji Ikea was a physics professor at Osaka University. Now he's trying to get children excited about the adventure of science. He demonstrates to these children how electromagnetic rays can trigger a battery-powered toy into action.
So watch this carefully, guys. He's showing here that they're telling us truth in plain sight. They're showing us here that the electromagnetic waves can be targeted. It can send out targeted energies. Watch.
Without their having to flick a switch.
Look at that.
As far as Professor...
Guys, the Earth is a magnificent place. The Earth already has energy. There is a lot of energy in the soil, in the air, and all around us. And these people have hidden knowledge. They have hidden knowledge that they're using against us. Either they have us pay for it, or they use it as weapon against us. Because remember, they can't get to God, the Creator. They can't get to Him. They can't get to the Most High God, right? So the only people they can get access to is us here on earth. We're the only ones they can target. So in order for them to fight against God, they can't fight against God, but instead they fight against God's creation. Okay?
Ikea is concerned, many precursory phenomena have a single cause: strong, irregular electrical impulses.
You hear? You hear that?
Phenomena have a single cause: strong, irregular electrical impulses.
So they use electrical impulses, guys. Electrical impulses.
Animal behavior before earthquakes can be linked to electrical phenomena. It's possible that very strong electricity appears on the ground surface some 2 hours or even a week prior to the earthquake.
A few hours before the disaster in Kobe, a dolphin was seen jumping out of its basin at the local zoo. But Toji Ikea believes that it was electrical signals that caused the animal to react. He's now headed to a dolphin research center at Maruto, on the island of Shikoku, where he's planning to conduct an experiment to confirm his theory that dolphins react to electromagnetic impulses transmitted through the water.
Right. So, guys, we understand that. I think the point has been made by now that they create these powerful electromagnetic waves, these electromagnetic energies that they harness from wherever on the earth. They can harness it and concentrate it, just like using lens to concentrate the rays from the sun, and you can use that to burn things, right, guys? That is what they're doing with these electromagnetic waves to generate energies to make earthquakes. All right, so there's a video I want us to take a look at to show how these electromagnetic waves may be used, okay, to send concentrated energies. So they're showing us here how they can use it to look for so-called oil and natural gas. But guys, remember, all of the energies that they're showing can be sent to a concentrated point on the Earth's surface. So let's watch this real quick. It's pretty short.
So how do you find something that's completely hidden beneath the Earth's surface? It's a mystery that people in the oil and gas industry are always trying to solve, and for very good reason. Drilling for hydrocarbons is expensive. And before they spend money on equipment and crews, exploration and production companies need a reliable strategy for pinpointing where to drill.
See? So guys, to pinpoint, that means they can send targeted energies to specific points below the Earth's surface. So pay attention to these people right here, because I personally believe that they can use submarines or they can use ships to send targeted energies to specific points on the Earth's surface to create earthquakes, to create vibrations, like sending sound waves to a targeted point. And that sound waves, because according to the law of conservation of energy, they can use those energies to weaponize, to create weapons.
Geoscientists have a secret weapon called seismic exploration, and it involves sending acoustic energy, which takes the form of waves.
Acoustic here means sound, okay? So they can send sound energy down into the Earth. So again, according to the law of conservation of energy that they taught us in school, guys, if it basically says that energy cannot be made nor destroyed. You can only convert that energy from one form to another. So if they can send electromagnetic waves down into the Earth, then that electromagnetic energy can be converted into a different form of energy that we see in earthquakes, vibrations, ruptures, heat. All those things can be given off if they send targeted energy to a specific point.
Into the ground to get a sound picture beneath the surface. It's complicated, so let's start with the analogy of bats. Bats can't see very well, so they send out little waves of sound that bounce off of objects and then go back to their ears. It's called sonar. It gives them what you might call a sound picture of their world. That's a good example of how nature already uses a form of seismic acoustic imaging to locate objects. Doctors also use it for ultrasound imaging. Geoscientists use man-made tools to make the sound wavelets, listen to them, and then record them. When you want to know if oil and gas deposits are in a particular area, geophysical companies bring large trucks that have big vibrators on them. Most of the time, this is what generates the acoustic energy or vibration. They use geophones, or very sensitive seismic microphones, to hear the reflected sounds. But sometimes they set off small buried charges. They set many geophones on the ground in a line, and they are attached to a recorder inside another truck.
So they glossed over that like it's nothing, guys. But what they just said right here is that you see this truck right here, they're going to use this truck to send targeted waves. So, guys, think about this. If they're trying to find something in this spot, they're sending electromagnetic waves to this targeted area right here. This could easily be a rock formation that's connected to different spots right here, close to the ocean or river or something right here. They can basically send energy to hit a particular point, and that causes that sound energy then to travel along and causes that vibration. Right? Think about putting some beans or something on a speakerphone and you play it. It's going to jump around because it's giving energy as that electronic energy is converted into vibration energy, into vibrations.
The ground in a line, and they are attached to a recorder inside another truck. The vibrators send thousands of wavelets down into all the different layers of the earth. Some of the wavelets bounce off of the boundaries between the rocks below the surface and are
so you can see right here that it's sending out energies, guys. So imagine how simple it would be for them to target or to concentrate all of this energy into one beam right here, to focus all of the energy into a single spot right here. Very easy. Wouldn't it be even easier if they were able to get a submarine to go down here and put a plate on the Earth's surface and then send in shock waves into the earth, into the rocks below here, and that energy is then transmitted all over? Guys, they are making these destructions.
Reflected back to the geophones that are waiting to record them. Each geophone along the cable sends the received wavelets to the recording truck where they're recorded and stored. Here's what seismic looks like after it's been recorded.
Okay, so that's enough right here with that one right there. Now, so here is an actual news event of how they're reported on an earthquake. Pay attention.
In so quickly. Are you surprised? I'm thinking you're not, that people here in San Diego County felt it, even though it
She asked him a question and then she's answering for him.
hit in Riverside County.
Well, yes.
So here they're saying that the earthquake, the epicenter was at one spot, but then it was felt so far away that it was shocking. It's not shocking, guys, if you think about what I just showed you, where they can send targeted energy to a specific spot on the Earth's surface. And based on how those rocks are connected, guys, because the Earth's surface is one solid piece of rock. But just like imagine a chicken breast or whatever, where you have different layers, different tissues make up that chicken breast. It's the same with the Earth's surface. So if they can target a specific tissue, for lack of better words, inside of those rocks by using those targeted waves, they can generate vibrations to hit specific spots. So basically, they can use earthquakes to send targeted energies to hit specific targets.
Surprised at how widely felt it is. I mean, a 4.5 is, we're at the size where we don't expect any real damages or injuries. It's the kind of a thing that a lot of people don't feel it. But it's being very widely felt. But there's a lot hidden in that magnitude number. Now, when you're talking there to Javier in an apartment building in National City, well, a taller building has the ability to amplify the shaking. And then also, what is the building on? If you're on, like, for example, loose sand with water in it, that can amplify the shaking. So in other words, our buildings, the earth materials we're built on, they can change how much a person feels.
We've heard reports that people heard the earth.
But you would kind of think that if the building is on a rock, it would feel the vibrations more. But I guess kind of makes sense too with the water, being a good conductor.
Earthquake before they actually started to feel it. And another thing I wanted to ask you is what should people do? What's the latest say about safety measures? Do you get under a table? Do you get next to something? Do you get in a door jam? What's the latest?
Well, the two questions there. First off, the P waves. The fastest waves, they're these push-pull waves, kind of like a slinky toy. They're the same thing as sound waves. So if you're near enough...
Do you hear that? The first waves to get off, the less destructive waves I'm getting, because the P wave and you have the S wave. So he's saying that it is just like a sound wave, guys. Come on, they're telling us.
The epicenter, those seismic waves will come out of the ground. You will hear them as sound waves, but then in the air they dissipate fast. What do you do when you feel one of those earthquakes? Virginia was just stating there, that's that drop, cover, and hold on. Your real danger is not the earthquake, it's what might fall on you or get thrown at you. So in your house, is it your dining room table, for example? You get underneath that, grab onto the legs of it and let fall whatever may fall and then come out. Or for one this early in the morning, for everybody, their safest place you could be ought to be asleep in bed. Your bed should be a safe zone. Don't have the armoire next to it where it can fall on it or things like that, so that you're woken up in bed like you're talking about the Northridge earthquake, 4:31 a.m. Boy, I felt that big time. I'm in bed, no problem. Let it shake all at once. Nothing's going to hurt me there.
And definitely worth kind of looking around your house and figuring out what would we do if something hit while the family's home. What are the safe places, and maybe move furniture if they're not in the best place for that. Pat, what about the idea, and again, I know you can't predict these, but so...
Depth 9 miles. 9 miles. But guys, we can't really believe these numbers. We can't really believe these numbers, but if you take a look at this though, you can see here it's coded, right? It has depth 9 miles, magnitude 4.5, which is 9. Wow.
What happens for people who are concerned that this is just the beginning, there are more to come?
Well, you know, this particular earthquake is in the San Andreas system, and as we've been saying for the last several...
So you see, they're programming people to say, hey, expect this to happen. Guys, take these people literally. They are going to destroy these places with earthquakes. Anywhere along, the California area, the San Andreas Falls, whatever they want to call it. Guys, take these people literally, because they are working for the devil. And that is where they get in the knowledge to create all these technologies. The devil is giving these people knowledge, I believe. And they're using that knowledge as weapon. Because they could easily use that knowledge for good, to create energy where you don't have to pay anything, but instead they're using that energy as a weapon, and if you use it, you have to pay.
Years with this great shakeout preparation events, we have a scenario earthquake where we expect a large earthquake, a 7.8. Going from the Salton Sea past Palm Springs through San Bernardino city limits. Well, we're right in that fault zone here with this one this morning. This could be a foreshock. Not saying it is. We don't have the ability to...
Do you hear that? So they're telling us that they have plans to create a 7.8 magnitude earthquake. Wow. By the way, 7.8, 2 7s, 14, 1, 15. So that's 7.8 is a number 6, hidden or coded.
That. The main thing is, you're living in California. When you wake up every morning, you ought to know that a big earthquake could occur today. Just like the folks in Leilani Estates know that every morning they wake up, a lava flow could destroy their houses. Their reality is going on now, and we haven't had a real big Southern California earthquake, well, really since Northridge in 1994.
It's been a long time, and that's why people are sort of on edge, just waiting for the big one to happen. So when we see an earthquake like we saw this morning, does it relieve pressure on surrounding fault lines, or does it disturb it, and can it create more?
First off, does it relieve? No. Or if we say if it does, it's inconsequential. So part of the fact that the earthquake magnitude scale is logarithmic, let me give you...
Which doesn't make any sense, guys, if you think about it. Because they claim that an earthquake is basically... is when the Earth's pressure points give off energy. So if it's giving off energy, then it should be less stress at that point, but maybe to create stress at a different point. But guys, don't believe what these people say. They're just liars. They're the ones who are creating these earthquakes to make hell on earth for us. Okay, so I have one last video here to show you, and this video here is basically where they admit that they create earthquakes. Let's watch.
The power of ELF waves firsthand back in the 1980s. He was hired by an energy... Dr. Agnew experienced the power of ELF waves firsthand back in...
ELF waves, guys. ELF waves.
In the 1980s. He was hired by an energy company to locate oil and gas using the same kind of ELF waves at much lower frequencies to carry out his search. It's a process called Earth tomography.
Earth tomography. So, guys, it's the same thing we were speaking about earlier, where they can send targeted waves, ultra low frequency waves into the Earth and get reflections. This is how they make earthquake, guys. This is where they admit that they create earthquakes.
But during one particular incident, Dr. Agnew believes his use of HAARP-like ELF waves accidentally triggered an earthquake.
Do you think that's an accident, guys? Do you believe that's an accident? I believe that these people have secret knowledge handed to them by the devil himself. And these people have sold their soul for riches and fame. So in exchange for their riches and fame, they get access to secret knowledge. And they use that secret knowledge as weapons against us.
It was in the spring of 1987 we arrived in Roseburg, Oregon to use our ELF technology to search for oil and gas. Setting up we had a little bit different results than we expected because the instant that we energized it, there was between a 4 and 4.5 on the Richter scale earthquake that occurred.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Guys, they just admitted to creating an earthquake. Let's go back and listen.
We had a little bit different results than we expected because the instant that we energized it, there was between a 4 and 4.5 on the Richter scale earthquake that occurred. We were so amazed about what seemed to be cause and effect. We get to an area that has a high propensity for earthquakes in an area known as the meg.
What is that? That looked like someone with a one eye right here. What the hell is that?
The thrust of the Pacific Northwest. We turn it on and an earthquake occurs.
Did you hear that?
Propensity for earthquakes in an area known as the megathrust of the Pacific Northwest. We turn it on and an earthquake occurs.
Wow.
Dr. Agnew demonstrates how he may have triggered the quake.
This is a scale model of what the area looked like in Oregon when we scanned for oil and gas in 1987. This strata right here represents the megathrust area underneath the ground. The rock represents the potential energy set up in the ground from a tectonic stress. What we're going to do is introduce ELF waves and demonstrate that it can in fact trigger an earthquake.
In this case, Dr. Agnew is using a stereo speaker to produce the ELF waves needed for his demonstration.
ELF waves, extremely low frequency waves, are just like a subwoofer. In your car, you can actually feel the vibrations.
You hear that? They're saying that the ELF waves are sound waves, are just like sound waves. They give off energy. They give off energy. Guys, these people are wicked. So wherever you are in this world and you see an earthquake, these are the people who are creating these things. The one world government, the ones who are creating chaos.
Your body. ELF waves are the same way. They vibrate the earth, and at right resonant frequencies, they can have devastating effects.
Did you hear that? At the right frequency, they can have devastating effects. He's admitting right here, guys. He's admitting it. This is not a one-off thing that does happen. They're admitting that these things cause earthquakes. And not just earthquakes, but destructive earthquakes.
When the speaker is activated, ELF waves begin to emit. Tiny vibrations in the sand are detected. Then a few seconds later, the rock representing a fault line shifts.
As you can see, in a very few seconds, the resonant frequency built up in our model released the potential energy in the rock. That concussion, on a real scale, would have been felt for 100 miles.
So guys, how they're creating these waves is no different from say using a jackhammer to hit a rock or somewhere. That's exactly the technology they're using.
These conditions are already set up in the ground. All it takes is the activation energy to make the release happen. This is a small scale, and we're only using 30 watts in this scale.
When HAARP's broadcast array in Gakona, Alaska sends pulses of ELF waves into the ionosphere, the waves get reflected back down and pass through the Earth and ocean. If 3.6 million watts of ELF waves were purposely or accidentally aimed at an already unstable fault line, it could.
Wait, let's go back for a second here. So here, guys, they're talking about the HAARP thing that they have. Listen carefully.
The array in Gakona, Alaska sends pulses of ELF waves into the ionosphere. The waves get reflected.
So you're showing they're showing that, guys, that they can't get waves outside of the dome. So when they shoot the waves up into the sky, it gets reflected, right? So there's a glass above us, guys. There's a glass above us, right? So when they shoot the waves up, they say it gets reflected and goes back down into the earth, down into the oceans. Listen.
In Gakona, Alaska sends pulses of ELF waves into the ionosphere. The waves get reflected back down and pass through the earth and ocean.
Did you hear that?
3.6 million watts of ELF waves were purposely or accidentally aimed at an already unstable fault line. It could, according to Dr. Agnew, cause a tremendous earthquake.
Wow.
We're looking at just simple instabilities. What does it take to create an avalanche? A guy walking across an unstable ice field. What does it take to trigger an earthquake? The right signal coming in when the pressures are already built up and they're at their threshold. That feather, and in our case that hammer, releases that energy.
Wow. Okay, guys, so that's all I have for today. I just want to show you guys what I discovered here about earthquakes. And also, if you go to Google pattern search, you'll find that there are tons of different patterns on earthquake predictions and earthquake, I don't know, meters or whatever you put in there, earthquake meters or whatever. You can find some really, really interesting experiments and whatnot that they have done on earthquakes. Really, really interesting. And you will see a lot of it has to do with vibrations and electromagnetic waves. That's all I have for today, guys. See you next time.